program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
There's a rustle in the trees as the cold winter winds sweep across the African landscape. This is Safari Live. Ready. Standing by.
Five, four, three, two, one. You are live. You are live.
Good morning everybody and welcome to a sunrise safari. It is a little bit chilly and there's a strong wind blowing this morning, but it promises still to be an exciting one. Now, my name is Tristan and on camera today I've got Craig aka Batman, and remember that this is a live interactive safari, so for all our new viewers you can get hold of us on hashtag Safari Live on Twitter and be able to then ask any questions that you may have. And for all of our regular viewers, well, it will just be lovely to hear from all of you, and hopefully you'll have lots of questions for us today and maybe even some hints or tips regarding the dam cam or anything that went on during the night. It seems like it was a very windy evening last night, and I don't know if we're going to have too much activity when it comes to the large animals like elephants and buffalo. I'm sure they're still going to be seeking refuge, but hopefully this wind will die down during the day. Now, I'm not sure actually what my plans are this morning. I'm just going to head generally in a southerly direction. I'm going to check our hyena den again just to make sure if there's any sign there, and then from there I'll go and try and maybe see if we can't find this little naughty princess Shongile. Now, for those of you who don't know Shongile, Shongile is a young female leopard that we see in this area, and she's been seeing lots and lots of tracks of her moving around, and yet we haven't found her. So I'm going to try my very best this morning to see if we can't find the little princess. Now, onward and forward we go. And maybe some of you would have noticed that there was a blog put out yesterday regarding our traversing, so I will get into that a little bit later for those of you that still have questions, and for those of you that don't know about the traversing, I will answer a couple of those questions as well as just tell everybody about it so that we're all on the same page. But before I do that, Mr. Byron Fagasa Sorrell would like to say good morning to all of you.
Good morning everyone. I do indeed. I would like to say good morning. My name is Byron, and on camera with me this morning is Fergus. And we're having a fun morning so far, but we did see some honey badger tracks, and Fergus said he'd like to see a honey badger. I'd love to see a honey badger. But those tracks do look like they were from last night, but you never know. These cool winter mornings, you can still get those animals, those nocturnal animals, moving around. So we'll have a look around in this area and just see. But we know how shy and elusive honey badgers can be. So I was saying earlier, I'm not going to say what we're looking for this morning. I'm just going to let the bush decide for us and see what we can find. Who knows? I'm just in search of tracks or any signs of animals this morning, but I'm not going to be specific because the last two drives I've tried to find certain animals and it hasn't worked out. So we'll see what just unfolds for us. Hope you're all having a wonderful day, start to the day or end to the day wherever you are around the world. And I can hear some other guides out at the moment too. They're also looking for animals and tracking. So we'll definitely give each other a hand and hopefully find some animals today. I hope Tristan has luck at that hyena den. Every time I've gone there it hasn't been active, so I'm not sure where those hyena are. They're probably still around. Maybe our timing was just off. It's a lovely morning, wonderful temperature. It's about 80 degrees Fahrenheit and was it 18 degrees Celsius? What was the Fahrenheit? I can't remember. 70? 62? I don't know. Can't remember now. but it's actually very, very, or much warmer than I expected it to be. We had gusting wind last night, quite heavy wind blowing, which was interesting. Now that could potentially aid predators if they are hunting, and I say that because the wind then causes a lot of noise through the trees. It also makes it very difficult for the for the prey species to hear the predators and also to smell them. So windy conditions are actually ideal for predators to hunt in. So Tristan has decided that he's a little bit tired. He's going back to camp. He's not interested in driving this morning. No, I'm joking. It just sounds like Tristan has just got some technical issues that he just needs to sort out quickly. Now I've seen a bit of a bird party around here. Let's just have a look and sit and listen to the bush a little bit and see what birds we can find. There's a beautiful yellow-billed hornbill, folks, just on that bush willow lower down right here at the bottom. I think it's actually flown off now. There's another one up there. A few hornbills around, yellow-billed hornbills. I did see one's flying in front of it. There it goes. There's one up into the tree. Hornbills are really beautiful, yellow-billed hornbills. I saw one recently up in the Kalahari, yellow-billed hornbill, but it is the biggest hornbill I've ever seen, or biggest yellow-billed hornbill I've ever seen. I don't know what they feed them out there, but it was huge. It really was big, very long, thick beak, and just the body of the hornbill was much larger than any yellow-billed hornbill I've seen out here. So I'm not sure if it's been working out or but it was very, very large. What's it got in its beak there? Looks like possibly a seed pod. It's amazing. I find it fascinating how these birds are able to hold on and catch little insects with that long beak. They've become very, very good at it, and they can throw their prey up, whatever insect it is. One of my guests actually got an amazing image of a hornbill flicking up a little bee that it had caught, and just flicking it up and throwing it down the beak. But it really is amazing how they can almost throw those little insects up in there and catch them again very quickly once they've killed them. Preening itself. Some starlings around too, red-billed hornbills. So there's quite a number of different birds around this morning. See if we can find some other interesting ones today, I think. The morning chorus of birds calling. Megan, sure, I'm terrible at this. James is a lot better at this than what I am. Do you ask, what does the air smell like at the moment? So let's see if I can describe it. It's the air is quite fresh at the moment, Megan. So it's a very cool breeze, but it smells like, and because we're in this open grassy area now, this dry grass gives off quite a distinct smell. I don't know, how do you describe dry grass? What does it smell like? Wheat picks. It's just, Megan, I'm so terrible at describing the smells and what we can smell, but it lovely dry earthy smell, that dry sand, dry dusty earthy smell that we can smell at the moment think that's probably one of the best ways to describe it. This dry grass, you can smell it, but it's very fresh morning. But the smell that we have now and the smell that we get in summer is obviously very different. Summer, you do pick up on a lot of sweeter smells because of the plants flowering, so you can pick up on some sweet scents. But at the moment, it's this dry, earthy, almost dusty smell. But it's very pleasant. It's not overwhelming. It's a lovely smell. I hope that answers your question, Megan. We're gonna have to wait for James to get back. Machine Gun Nest, you say it smells like lions. So I'm assuming you want to see lions this morning. Well, we'll try our best. The whole time we're driving around, just constantly checking the roads, checking the tracks, see if there's any fresh tracks of animals moving through the area, of anything really. I mean, like we said, we saw tracks of honey badger this morning. Could potentially be some elephant tracks around, or buffalo, or of course the predators, hyena, leopard, lion, cheetah maybe, who knows. Now, I think I'm going to ask some of our viewers a question, and because we always get asked what our favorite animals are, what our favorite birds are, but because we started with the birds this morning, I'd like to know what some of your favorite birds are. African birds, though, or the birds that we see out on Safari Live, because I'm sure it's all different. So send us your answers. Hashtag Safari Live, or that's the best way to get hold of us. You can comment on I think on the YouTube page, but otherwise just hashtag Safari Live and send us your answers. Look at this. Oh, James. Alright, I'll get your question now. Look at these beautiful crested francolins that we've got just off to the side of the road. There we go. Those are lovely. Always nice seeing a few francolins. Now, James, your question, you asked, what species of animal has the largest variance in size based on where they occur? Okay, now I need to think very carefully. And James, I think if I understand this question correctly, I just want to make sure I get it right. You asking, so in terms of an antelope species or something, one that occurs here and it occurs in a different area, which one has the largest variance in size? Well, one that I can just think of off the top of my head, as those francolins disappear, there they go. One that I can think of off the top of my head would be the kudu. Now, the kudu, there's not a huge variance in size, but you do find there might be different sizes in their horns. I've seen that. I've noticed that in certain areas, from the eastern section of South Africa to the western section of South Africa, where we find them, north and south. The bodies of certain kudu in certain areas also tends to be a bit bigger, a bit larger. Down in the Eastern Cape, there are a lot of kudu down there. Up in here, in this area, there is a variance in size. I think the ones that I've seen down in the Eastern Cape, I think, are a little bit bigger than some of the ones that we see out here. I'm trying to think of other animals. There's always going to be a slight variance in size, but it's not major. I don't think there's a specific species that you can see there's a definite size difference. Maybe some of the steenbok, the little antelope. I have noticed size differences in different parts of South Africa. Some are much smaller than others, but it's not major. One interesting thing, though, is based on differences, is with birds in certain areas. Birds that we find in this area and that we find in the western part of South Africa, same species, might vary slightly in coloration. And that also depends on the terrain and the vegetation that they live in. So where we are, the bush is quite thick and there's a lot of greenery around. Whereas on the western side of South Africa, the terrain changes, becomes a lot drier, a lot more sparse, and the vegetation is a lot browner, and generally throughout the year. So based on the habitat, that can also slightly affect coloration a little bit in birds. So there's another difference with animals based on where they are found. But James, in terms of size, I can't think of anyone that really stands out, that there's a huge size difference. No, I think actually there's a big size difference in presenters. If you take the presenter here at the moment in Kruger, is much larger than the James species that you find up in the Mara. Purely physical size, yes. So I'm a little bit larger than James, but he is definitely fitter than me, that's for sure. He runs a lot, so maybe I'm going to start running, see if I can look like James. Now, Lexi, you asked if we have any electrical storms in this area. Lexi, we do get thunderstorms and electrical storms or lightning storms now and then. Sorry, I just heard there's a beautiful grey-headed bush shrike calling. I don't know if we'll be able to find him, but let me just have a look anyway. I don't know where he's calling from. He's in the trees behind us. See if you can hear him quickly. Now he's stopped. The beautiful sound, the grey-headed bush shrike. Lexi, getting back to your question, we don't have electrical storms as such in this area. We do get lightning, but I don't think you would consider it to be an electrical storm. Johannesburg gets a lot of electrical storms, huge lightning and thunderstorms that are beautiful. I really love seeing them. Now, we do get lightning out here, and I have been in situations where the lightning has caused fires in the dry season. So, moving out to the dry season, so October, November, we've got to be very careful with the storms that start brewing, and then when those storms hit, because the bush is so dry, it can cause fires from time to time. But it's not common in this area. But we do get lightning out here, Lexi, but I wouldn't consider them to be electrical storms as such. So the viewers are telling me which birds are their favorites. Now let's see what we've got. Rebecca, the lilac-breasted roller is your favorite? Yes, Rebecca, it's a beautiful bird. Lovely seeing the lilac-breasted rollers. I haven't seen one this trip yet. Claire, you say the violet-backed starlings. Yes, those are beautiful birds. Little violet-backed starlings. They used to be known as the plum-coloured starlings, But yeah, violet back starlings are lovely. It's a nice one, Claire. Now, Natalie, you sent, was it a plover? A little plover. And Janet, you said a quail. Kirsten, you say not a hardy-dar, that's for sure. Yeah, Janet, getting back to your answer of a quail, we saw one yesterday, a little harlequin quail. Let me just find it for you quickly. I want to show you quickly because it's such a beautiful bird, and I was hoping to find it yesterday to show all of you, but these little button quails disappear, or rather just quails disappear so quickly. There we go, where is it? It was this little guy, that little one over there, the harlequin quail. I caught a glimpse of this one yesterday, beautiful little quail, but it disappeared in the long grass very quickly before Craig could get it on camera. Oh, it's a beautiful little quail. However, just want to double check something quickly because now, fortunately, Tristan is back on his vehicle. It sounds like it's all working. So let's head back to Tristan and find out how the morning's going.
Well, it's been a stop-start morning, Byron. We've had a little issue with our feed going out and coming out of the car and to the FC, and so that's why we had to go back quickly just to check the cables and everything, and it seems like we may have sorted everything out and that everything is working once again. Now we are just getting back towards the hyena den because we're going to try this again. I see nice tracks for hyenas going towards the den from last night, so let's have a look here. Maybe, just maybe, this morning is the morning that we find them back here again. It seems like they have been walking around. It looks like only one female that came here, but let's just check and see. You never know. Maybe what's happening is Ribbon just comes here during the night and then during the day she carries on and goes and does her own thing. It'll be interesting to know. I'd love to put a camera trap up here and just see the ongoings of this sort of den and whether or not there are young ones still left here. But it doesn't look like anybody's home at this stage. Just checking slowly because they sometimes like to lie on the southern side of the den. No, nothing at the whole of the den that I can see. I don't know. I wonder if it's just not one of the routes that they're walking on, because I don't see any sort of fresh signs of young ones being in this area. No fresh tracks there. Let's just quickly check around this side. What might be is that they're just using it as a sort of bypass area to go from quarantine towards sort of Treehouse Dam, and that they're actually not denning here because there's no fresh tracks for cubs or for the hyenas actually spending time here. It's just where they've walked across and through and down these pathways. So their tracks come up here, and then there's a little game path that goes behind me and heads down towards Treehouse Dam. So I think they've moved for sure because there's definitely no signs of any cub tracks here. We'll have to try and see if we can't find where this den is. Maybe it's a little bit further south of us. I'll go check around and see what we can find. I know Taylor did some checking and investigating yesterday. She checked the one off Zoe's, and I think she checked the one off Elephant Carcass. So I'm going to probably try and see if maybe Mvubu. I know that Chris, you told me that there's two dens around Aubrey's and Gallagher shortcut area. I'm not quite sure where those are, so I'm going to try and find out from Tax, and I'll go and check around there as well. But it just seems like these tracks keep going quarantine and then southwards, so I don't know, maybe they've moved the den even on to Hofmann's, which is a little bit south of us. It is very possible that they have done that. Now earlier I said that I will get into the whole traversing story that some of you may have read about, and it really is, the blog was pretty sort of self-explanatory as to what's going on, but effectively we're no longer traversing with Cheetah Plains and Arathusa. We've decided that the model that we're using currently is not really effective and is not going to work for us to be able to grow and expand within the Sabi Sands. The rates that we're paying are just too much in comparison to somewhere like the Mara, where it's a lot more cost effective and we're getting a lot more traversing area for far less. So what we need to do is come up with a sort of new strategy as to how we're going to sort this out. And so what we've decided is we're going to pull back slightly from these two, and we're going to try and do a different approach that will allow us to have less impact on areas and to try and traverse more of the Sabi Sands. So basically what that means is that we don't want to be permanently on every single property, but that we'll have access to all of these properties and be able to then go and spend a few days there and then come back and use Djuma as our home base. So that's the kind of sort of angle that we're going to try and see if we can't get right, and we're going to try and see if we can't expand to as much of the Sabi Sands as possible, which is very, very exciting because there are so many beautiful areas. There's the rivers that we would love to show you guys, the Sabi River. There's also lots and lots of new characters that are around, and wouldn't it be exciting and wonderful if we could follow, let's say hypothetically, the Birmingham Coalition no matter where they went, or any of our leopard characters across all the different properties. So that's the kind of where we're trying to go with this and what we're trying to do. So sometimes you have to take a step back to be able to go forward and to start moving in the right direction, and so that's why we're doing it. We eventually want to have a situation where we have space that rivals the Mara, and in terms of encompassing many territories of the different animals, and so that's where we're going with all of this, and I hope that you'll all understand that. And while it is sad that we are going to lose out on seeing some of the regular characters, the two Cheetah brothers and Nkanyeni, you never know, things always kind of evolve and change, and maybe in time we're going to end up back in those areas and be able to view those particular individuals. So it's not all doom and gloom. And then obviously there's an upgrade to the dam cam, which is going to be exciting. I know that I spoke to Graham the other day and he was telling me that they want to make it the best dam cam in the world, and they're going to try and use as much technology as possible. Now I know Byron was talking about birds, so let's try and see if we can get our little, looks like a red-crested Quran on camera. So there you can see it just hiding away in the bush. So yes, it is a red-crested Quran. Is it a red-crested Quran? Turn around. Looks like it, yes. So there's two birds out here that look very similar. One is the black-bellied bustard and the other one is the red-crested Quran. And both of them spend their times in the grass like this. They move around sort of low down and they pick off insects as they go through the sort of dry grass, and they'll camouflage incredibly well. You see their back area is very well suited for blending into its environment. But as you see it walking, look at the belly area and just below the tail, it is jet black, and the reason for that is because this bird will use flash coloration. Now what that means is basically when this bird is disturbed, it then flies out of the grass and it has jet black wings and stomach, and that means the predators themselves see black. And the bird will then fly and land, and the predator is then looking for that deep contrast to try and spot the bird. But now it's got its wings folded and it's got that mottled back which blends in perfectly, and so they end up camouflaging very well, and the predator comes a little bit confused by all of this and kind of overlooks them, and sometimes will just walk right past them. So it's a clever strategy that they've got. Now I was saying that we get the two different species, and I'm going to try and show you the difference between the two of them. Here we go. Alright, so if you have a look here, you've got the black-bellied bustard on top, which is one of the species that we see here. But if you look, it's got a very white ear covert on the male, and then this long black line that runs down its neck up towards its beak. So that male is very distinctive. The female doesn't have the black on the stomach, and it has more white over here. Now on the red-crested Quran, which is below, you can see the male lacks that black going up the throat, lacks the white around the ear, and then the female also has the black belly that the black-bellied bustard doesn't have on a female, which is quite strange because you would think the name would say which one is which. Right, so red-crested Koran, which is a nice one to tick off early in the morning, and that one was actually quite obliging. Often they're quite shy birds, and they'll end up sort of running into the bush and into the thickets away from you, and you actually don't get too sort of good a visual of them. Now, what is quite cool with them is if that was a male bird, now if the male birds go up onto termite mounds often in the mornings or in the afternoons, and they'll make quite a bit of noise, and you often see them sitting just on top of the termite mound, and then from there they'll fly up and they do this incredible aerial display where they go up and then they plummet to the ground, and at the last second they just pop their wings out and it slows them down and they land much like what you would see with a parachute. It is very, very cool to watch, and hopefully one day we'll be able to see it. I think Jamie's actually found it on camera once before and shown all of you. It was very, very cool to see when they do it. It's like a suicidal dive to the ground, and then at the last second they pop out. Right, so onward and forward we're going towards Treehouse Dam, just to see, you never know, maybe little Shongile or Hasana is hanging around. And so while we do that, let's go across to Byron and see whether or not he's had any luck or decided what he would like the bush to give him this morning.
Well, so far the bush hasn't given us anything this morning, Tristan, but we are looking, we are in search. Now, I got an update from one of the other guides that they saw tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride. They think heading south, heading in this direction. They didn't see them actually crossing the boundary yet, but we're going to just go and have a look and scan that area, see if we can't find any fresh tracks of this pride of lions. We'll see. Hopefully they are looking. It sounds like they're in search of the lions, trying to find fresh tracks. I'm just scanning at the moment while I'm driving, checking the tops of termite mounds, if there's anything potentially lying there, and see if we can find something. It's a lovely morning now, the sun's up. Well, Taylor touched on this the other day, but the colors that we are seeing at the moment are so beautiful. These wonderful winter or autumn colors, winter colors now I suppose, they're winter, yeah. Browns and like yellows and slight greens, orange, some lovely colors. You can see that beautiful silhouette, or those silhouettes rather, while we're driving. That wonderful sunrise. Luckily it's not as misty as it was yesterday. Kirsten, no, the monkeys and baboons don't leave Djuma in the winter. They're always here. They're always around. We had monkeys jumping on our roofs yesterday. The baboons are around too. We don't see many baboons around here. They do occur, but we don't see many baboons. But they are definitely around. And no, but they don't. None of those animals would migrate for the winter. Just need to find them probably resting in big trees, so going to areas where there's maybe a bit more water, where the food's a bit better for them, but they are still around. Like I said, I had some jumping on our roofs yesterday. There's a Koki Franklin making a huge noise. Let's see if we can see it quickly. Now they do hide, and in this long grass it'll be very difficult to see it. Let's just quickly scan here. Okay, well, I've just got another update. I can't see that Franklin anywhere. It's probably in the long grass, but I can just hear one of the other guides. I'm just going to chat to him quickly. So Tristan's talking on the radio at the moment. But it sounds like the tracks of the Nkuhuma Pride have headed onto Vuyatela, onto Djuma. Okay, let's see if we can. Let me just radio again. Tristan's on the radio. Come on, Tristan. Yeah, we'll dock his salary. Copy that update. Thanks very much. I'm on Gallagher shortcut at the moment. I'm going to check from this side and then come around towards Vubu. Alright, let's have a look. Alright, now we're going to try and start trying to look for tracks of these animals and hopefully find this pride of lions. While I do that, let's head back to Tristan, who's just got off the radio, and let's see what his plan is.
Well, I have indeed, Byron. I've been trying to find out where the Nkuhuma tracks were going to try and give you an update, because I knew you were live and you might not be listening to your radio, so I was just listening for you. And basically they said that the tracks have come onto Djuma, which is fantastic news, and they're heading towards Mvubu Road. So I'm going to do a very, very, very far loop to the south, just to make sure that they haven't come all the way down towards Central and to where Ali had them the other day with Amber Eyes and the cubs, so around Vulture's Nest, that area. I'm just going to have a little quick scratch around there. You never know, maybe they've come that far. I'm hoping that they probably still, or I'm thinking that they're probably still a little bit further to the north, but you never know. It might be that they are somewhere in that area, so it's worth just trying to go and have a little look. Also, we've had no signs of any of our little princes or princesses in terms of our leopards. No sign of Shungile or Hosana at Treehouse Dam or on the Treehouse Dam Road or around Shabamu. So now I'm just slowly meandering towards sort of Twin Dam side, and then from Twin Dams I'll go up towards Mulawati and see, maybe we get lucky with these lions somewhere around that area. But like I say, I'm pretty sure they're probably up towards sort of Mvubu side. They like to hang around up there, and we know that they've used those drainage lines up there before when denning, and so maybe, just maybe, Amber Eyes with the cub is somewhere that side, and that's why the rest of the pride has come into that area. Interestingly enough though, there was apparently signs of them sort of following buffalo. Now yesterday there was some buffalo that were hanging around. I saw their tracks, quite fresh tracks, around that sort of eastern side of Gari Dam, and so maybe they're on the trail of some buffalo and that's why they're heading into that area. And wouldn't that be exciting to find the Nkuhumas on a really big meal? It's good to have them back. It's almost like a little gift in terms of our sort of not traversing some of the other areas when the Nkuhumas have now come back, and it's always just to ease the mind of everybody and to say that we will still see lots of our favorite animals, and really hoping that the Nkuhumas are going to be a permanent fixture this winter. I know last year they were such a good part of sort of this area, and there was so many incredible moments with them, and they're such a special pride. I don't know why they're a special pride to me, they just are. I always enjoy spending time with them. I think it's the fact that they've got so many beautiful big females and they've done so well with their cubs. And previously to that, they've had such a hard time with all the males that have come through that it's really just so good to see that the actual pride is almost growing and expanding now rather than going the other way. So very, very cool to see. Now, also just talking about lions, there's an update that the sticks were also seen this morning on the sort of Annette's Cheetah Plains boundary, and apparently their cubs are all still doing well, which is very, very good. So I'm glad that the sticks are also growing. And you know, it's interesting to see kind of how the sticks movements have changed. I remember when I was at Chitwa, the sticks used to come often up into this area. We used to find them a lot on Little Garu. We used to find them all the way deep into Arathusa, and I even saw them sometimes up near Simbambili. So they used to range a lot more than what we see now. Now they tend to stick really to sort of Annette's, Chitwa, Little Gari, Vessels, Hoffman's. That's really the core of their area now. And they also used to go a lot into Mala Mala, and it seems these days they don't push nearly as much. And I think the reason for that is because of the Mangen breakaways. Now the Mangen breakaways, for those of you who are not familiar with them, they're a sort of 6 lionesses that have come off the Mangen Pride, which was originally part of the Solala Pride. So it's basically a break off from the Solalas, and they moved into that Mala Mala area and gave birth to some cubs in that area. Well, some of the females did, and so they've kind of been hanging around that sort of Sand River, as far as I can work out, just north of the Sand River. And because it's 6 big lionesses and there's only the 3 sticks, I'm sure what's happened is they've pushed those sticks further north, and that's why the sticks spend so much more time in this area and far less time down in Mala Mala like they used to. Right, it's always good to check Weaver's Nest. It's like a highway for many of our animals, so it's a good place just to have a little look and make sure there's no tracks coming past this way. Now we're going to carry on down the fire break, which is also a highway for Shongile and Hosana. Both of them love to walk to this area. Right, now I believe Byron has had some luck and he's managed to find what we've been looking for.
Hello everyone, yes, we found the lions. Give me a second, everyone's excited now and they're just trying to get hold of me on the radio. Go ahead, taxi. I've located on the Nkuhuma Pride. We on that little link from Gallagher shortcut that heads up to Buffelshoek Cutline. Yes, we found them. Hey, look at that. I must admit. Not that far. If you head down that link, you know where it curves and it cuts almost directly northwest again, before it leads up to those little mud wallows. We're just to the east of that. Oh, this is wonderful. I'm just going to move a little bit forward quickly because I want to show you the rest of the pride. Oh, this is wonderful. I haven't seen the Nkuhuma Pride for ages. Oh, hold on. They're all tucked in there, trying to stay warm. It's not that cold, but there are some little ones hiding in there too. Stump in front of me. There we go. How's that, Fergs? Can you get them through there? That's lovely. Hold on. Get a nice view of them for you. Look, Izzy, you say, look at the pretty girl, beautiful female of the Nkuhuma Pride, and look at that. Look at them all huddled together there. All the faces of the lions. Doesn't that look cozy? Oh, well, like I said, it's lovely to see them. I'm so glad we found them. You see, just like I thought that the bush eventually will just produce for us, and it has. And we were scanning, we were driving very slowly. I said to Fergus, I was like, I'm sure we're going to find these lions in this area. And Fergus spotted the lioness just off the side of the road. And the rest of the pride is lying just in that little thicker area. Look at this. Oh, really wonderful to see some lions again. As I said, I'm just so excited because I haven't seen this pride for quite some time. Now, apparently there is one lioness that has got a little cub, so I'm looking out for it. I'm hoping to see it. I wonder if it is with the pride at the moment. I'm sure it is. Maybe hiding in there somewhere. There's another lioness in the grass at the back. Snarky, you said you'd like to climb right in the middle of those lions. I don't know if that would be a very good idea. With those youngsters around, those lionesses would be very protective over them. But it does look cozy. I know what you mean. It looks very comfortable and cozy. Excuse me a second. Morning, Khat. It's Byron. Go ahead. Copy that, Khat. At this stage, the animals are lying down flat out at the moment. And I know Texan and I think Aubrey are making their way in here. We'll give you an update as soon as we move out. Ellen, you say it's a blanket of lions. Oh, does look like it, doesn't it? Oh, that's a wonderful view of them. Now, these lions would most likely have been moving around during the course of the evening, and I'm not exactly sure where they were before. I don't know if they saw them yesterday, but they have come up from the northern, or just north of us, so from the Buffelshoek area. They've come down here, so they've most likely been moving around quite a lot, possibly trying to hunt. I'm not sure how hungry they are. Doesn't look like they're really well fed, so lions are always opportunistic. They would try and hunt when they are moving around, but now because they've been moving around for a few hours, it's a great time to rest a little bit. I do think that these lions may decide to get up at some point and move again. Now, while the morning is still very cool, but we'll see. We'll spend some time with them and just work out exactly what their plan is, or if they end up hanging around here for the day and moving later this afternoon. That would be lovely too. Hopefully we'll get to see them again this afternoon. I'm sure we will. And even though these lions look so peaceful and so relaxed and sleepy, they are still completely alert and aware of what's going on around them. That's a beautiful picture. Isn't that great? I know a lot of you are itching to see that little cub that the one lioness has. I can't see any sign of a little cub just yet, but that's why we'll spend some time here and see. Perhaps it is lying in there somewhere or behind the lions. There was another lioness at the back, so I'm hoping that little cub is around. Robert, you are correct. This is the pride that has the lioness in it that is known as Amber Eyes. Now, I still struggle a little bit with identifying. I haven't seen this pride enough times to really identify Amber Eyes, but she is part of this pride, and I think she is the one, if I'm not mistaken, that lioness is the one that has got the cubs at the moment. So I think yeah, firm, make your way straight in. I think she is here somewhere. But like I said, there's one or two lionesses lying at the back, just behind that clump of lions. Some of the other guests are going to join us soon, so hopefully they'll be able to get a view of them. Daniel, Daniel, you're 13 years old. Good morning, Daniel. Well, from South Africa at least. Good morning. You asked who would win a fight between a lion or a leopard. Well, Daniel, it would most likely be a lion, because a lion is just much larger than a leopard, and both cats are very, very powerful. And a leopard is probably, I would say, pound for pound, the strongest of the two cats. But I think purely from the size, a lion would most likely win, although leopards are very agile and very, very powerful. Now I'm going to see if we can reposition a little bit and try and give everyone else a view of these lions too shortly. So Stanley, you asked why the lions need so much sleep compared to some of the other animals. Well, Stanley, the thing is, the lions are clever, actually, if you think about it. And I say this because the lions conserve their energy. So when they need to hunt or need to move around, they've got enough energy to do so. Now, in winter, Stanley, lions will move around a lot more because the temperatures are much cooler, and it's more pleasant for them to move around in the cooler conditions. That's why lions generally move a lot at night, the cool temperatures, and also under the cover of darkness. It's easier for them to hunt. So that is why the lions would conserve their energy during the day and then move around a huge amount, or huge distance at least at night. So if you think of us now, when we fast asleep at home, these lions are moving around. So that's the difference. So they prefer to rest during the day. I see that lioness cleaning and grooming herself a little bit. Miss Sky, you asked who can run faster, a leopard or a lion. So the charging speed, now we learn about the charging speeds of these animals. Look at those paws. Beautiful, beautiful lion paws. So the charging speed of a lion is about 20 to 22 meters per second. So that's really, really fast. But a leopard is slightly faster, the charging speed. Now they can't keep up those speeds for long distances. A cheetah could probably run top speed of about 110 kilometers an hour. What's that, about 60 miles an hour? For about 100 to 200 meters or so. And then they usually heat up quite quickly. But lionesses, or lions at least, can run a bit further, but they won't keep a big speed up. Their charging speed is more of when they launch their attack and try and stalk and hunt animals, and that will be 20, 30, maybe 40 meters. That's it. So that'll be a short burst, very quick pace, but the leopard is slightly quicker than a lion. Look at that. That's such a wonderful view of this lioness. Now, Angie, all the way from Wisconsin, you commented on the white under the eyes, and you wanted to know if those are those made to look like eyes when they are sleeping, so that it keeps other animals away. No, Angie, not at all. The main reason for that white coloration, and there you can see it very clearly under the eyes of that lion, is it is there to reflect light to the eye, especially at night. Now, their nocturnal vision is far better than ours, so the reason for this, for those white markings, is to reflect light to the eye, to allow their vision to be even better at night, mostly at night. So that is the reason for those white markings under the eye. Oh, look at that. That's really, really lovely. Alright. Okay, well, I'm going to maybe try and reposition here slightly, and then let's get back to Tristan and just see how his morning is going, and we'll see you all shortly again.
Well, Byron, it's a lovely morning. It's very, very sort of warm now that the wind has dropped completely out of nowhere. There's no more wind at all, and it's now become very, very pleasant. The sun is just starting to rise, and it is a glorious sort of sunlight that is raining down on us, and so it's been very pleasant. It's quiet, not very much out here, and we've checked the Mulawati, we checked Twin Dams, and not really much going on there. And so I came up towards Chelapan just to see what was going on here, but no signs of any tracks or anything really that's got a heartbeat at this stage. So just slowly cruising along and just seeing what else we're going to find. We're going to try and head up into the sort of Buffelshoek Dam area, and then we'll come down Cheetah and go and check Chitwa. That's where we're going to probably head for the rest of the morning, and maybe, just maybe, we'll get lucky with something. At the end of the day, you can only do what you can with the cards that you are given, and so hopefully the bush will provide something interesting for us at some stage this morning. I'm sure it will. And so it's been a kind of very pleasant morning just driving around, and Craig and I have been discussing all of the world's complexities and problems, and it's been quite pleasant actually this morning. So thanks, Craig, for the pleasant company. Now, I'm very, very excited also that the Nkuhuma Pride is back. Now, I don't know, I couldn't get on the radio how many lionesses were there, but I'm hoping that all 5 are there, and maybe, just maybe, by the end of the day, we'll find Amber Eyes with the little cub again. Wouldn't that be exciting if the little cub comes out again today, or even now with Byron? Would be amazing, and to go and see that little one and spend some time around it would be fantastic. And so super glad that the Nkuhumas are here, and if they were trailing buffalo last night, there's a very real possibility that late this afternoon they're going to be up and moving and trying to do some hunting. So it'll be good to spend some time, quality time with them, not only this morning but this afternoon as well. I've just come down towards Spaghetti Junction because I'm just checking around. You never know, maybe one of the little royals is somewhere here. I didn't find any tracks for either Shongile or Hosanna around sort of Twin Dams area, so I'm not sure where Taylor last had tracks last night and where they were heading, but I'm just driving the areas that we know that they like to spend a bit of time and often hang around in, and so that's where I'm busy checking at the moment. Just checking the Mulawati drainage, looking at all the big trees in case they may be sitting in a tree. Now that the wind has died down, it would be quite a pleasant place to be, is in one of these trees with that warm sunshine just on you as you sort of lie in the boughs of a branch. It would be very, very pleasant. Nyala Road South or Vulture's Nest? Let's go Vulture's Nest. So we're going to try Vulture's Nest and see if there's not something here. Wait, hang on, what's this? So Alison, you're wondering how we ID the leopards with the spot patterns that they have. Well, Alison, basically I'm going to show you now. Sorry, I just got excited because I saw tracks, but it's for a hyena. But while we're sort of in this position, let me show you what I'm talking about. I'm going to try and pull up a photo of a leopard quickly so that I can show you what spot patterns we use. Now, if you just give me 2 seconds, I need to find a good example of this. I'll try and find a leopard. There we go. Okay, so if you can just zoom in there for me, Craig. So this is one of the leopards that we see here called Chitwa. Now, Chitwa would theoretically, if we were going to use the system that most places use, we will use the spot pattern that sits just above the whisker line. So you see there's spots going that way, and then on the other side also spots going the other way, and they sit just above the whiskers. And so when you hear somebody saying this leopard has a 3-3 spot pattern, what they're referring to is that it's got 1, 2, 3 spots on the right hand side, and then 1, 2, 3 spots on the left hand side. And so they'll use that as a base sort of pattern. Now every individual leopard will have a different sort of spot pattern above those whiskers. Also, often people will use markings that are just above the eyes here, between the eyes. We know with Karula she had the wow across there. So all these arrangements of spots around the eyes and around the whiskers, will be different on each individual leopard. Now I'll try to see if I've got another leopard here that we can show you quickly. Just give me 2 seconds. So here we go. There's Shadow. So you can see her arrangement of spots is slightly different. So she's got 2 small ones and then a big one over there, which was different to what we saw with Chitwa. Hers were more sort of flattened and more arranged, and so that's how we'll use it. We'll also use the nose color to be able to ID some of them, and then the ears themselves. Each individual leopard will have different ear sort of structures, and we'll be able to tell from those. So that's how we use sort of spot patterns on leopards. There'll also be other funny little markings on them that other leopards don't have. So for example, Tingana has a little smiley face on his shoulder. So there's all these kind of things, and each guide will have a sort of different set of spots that they'll use often to ID a leopard. For me, I don't often use the spot pattern itself. Just after seeing a leopard a few times, you get to kind of recognize who they are, and it becomes a lot easier if you can see them well, that is. Sometimes if they're in sort of long grass and stuff, it becomes a bit difficult, but you try and sort of take cognizance of their ears, of their sort of nose structure, and even just the way that their face sort of sits. Each leopard will also have a very different facial structure. So you'll find like Hosana's got quite a sort of rounded, short muzzle, whereas you'll find, let's say hypothetically, all Karula's family has that sort of more rounded face. But there are some leopards that have slightly more elongated faces and end up with a longer muzzle. So there's all those kind of factors that you can use, but the sort of most scientific way is that spot pattern over the whisker line. Now hopefully all this talk about leopards will lead to us seeing one of these spotted cats somewhere here. So Mike, this is a good one and an interesting one. You want to know what direction our wind usually comes from? Well, Mike, it depends whether we're in the summer or the winter months. Generally in the summer months, our wind comes from the sort of, should I say winter or summer, Craig? I can't remember. Okay, let's start with summer, because now I'm going to get myself confused otherwise. In summer, we get most of our rainfall that comes in off the sort of eastern coastline, so from Mozambique Channel, and that pushes this way. And so generally the winds that we have that blow quite strongly are coming from the southeast. They come up from Mozambique Channel and then they blow across us and go from the southeast to the northwest. In the winter months it changes a little bit, because most of the frontal weather that we get is coming from the low pressure cell that comes off the Cape, and so that sweeps across the sort of southern side of South Africa, and then we get those prevailing winds that come up from there. And our very, very strong wind will generally come from the southwest, so that's where it normally comes from. So it just depends on the time of the year. The wind that we had last night was gusting from the southwest and from the west, and it was coming off the sort of Drakensbergs and then coming down into this Lowveld area. So that's pretty much how it works. Every now and then obviously we'll get a wind that changes slightly, and we might get a little westerly or an easterly wind, or sometimes even a northerly wind, but the northerly winds are very uncommon unless we get a sort of cyclonic event that happens north of us in the Mozambique Channel, and it comes down, and sometimes we'll get a little northerly wind that will push down towards us. So it just depends on that, but generally either southeast or southwest depending on the time of the year. It's also where all our rain comes from. If you see big rain clouds in the southeast in the summer months, you know that that's where trouble is coming, and that you're in for a rough ride and we're going to have a big storm. Right, while we continue our search, well, just for anything really, and particularly ones with spots, let's go back to Byron and see how the Nkuhuma Pride is doing and how well they groom one another.
Well, they're just grooming themselves at the moment, Tristan. They're still really enjoying that little position that they're in there. Nice and sheltered with the tree behind them, but actually there isn't much wind around this morning. Not like last night. It's definitely died down completely. So they're very comfortable where they are. So Alison, the easiest way for us to tell if it's a male or female is obviously by the manes. The males have got manes around their necks or on their heads, the big older males especially. The females don't have that. Now, in a pile like this, it is difficult to sometimes distinguish between each individual. It would also be harder with the younger lions, Alison. So the young lions that haven't developed manes yet, you might start seeing little tufts of hair forming at about a year and a half, 2 years old. You'll see little tufts of hair, even earlier than that. About a year old, you start seeing little tufts around the neck and the ears and the head of the young male lions. But as you said, in a pile of lions like this, it's not always easy to see the youngsters, which are male and female. That does look like a young male, actually, that little one over there. So this looks like he's got little tufts of hair around the head already. So the start of that mane, that beautiful mane. Now, in different areas, the manes can be really impressive. We've got the Birmingham males that we see around here a lot. They've got beautiful manes. Just came from the Kalahari, and they've got lions up there known as the Kalahari black-maned lions. Beautiful dark black manes. And we did get to see some of them. I think it's purely based on the area that they're in. Occasionally, genetically, some lions would just be darker than others. A friend of mine actually just saw a white lion yesterday in the area known as the Timbavati, just north of where we are. And it's a slight recessive gene that does occur within lions, and especially in that area. And they saw a beautiful white lion. Oh, look at that. See the interaction between the lionesses? As I said, then we might get some more movement around them. It is still very cool. Looks like the whole pride is starting to get up and move around. So let's see, one lioness moved off. Let's see if the rest of them follow her. You can see that interaction, that those lions constantly grooming one another, those two lionesses right at the back there. You can see they were lying very close to each other. Now, Siberia Zumi, you asked if I've ever seen a lioness that has a mane. And I have actually, Siberia Zumi. There's a lioness that was quite well known in Botswana, in the Delta. And this lioness, we don't know what it is. Again, genetics or testosterone levels and that. But this lioness actually did grow a mane, and I did see her once on safari about 2-3 years ago. We did see this lioness. It is really, really unusual. I've never seen or heard of a lioness in this area, in this Kruger area, with a mane. But I wouldn't be surprised if it has happened in the past somewhere. But yes, in Botswana there was a lioness. I think there were actually 2 of them over the last 10 years. I think there's been 2 lionesses that have been seen in that area with manes. Now that obviously has caused confusion before with the other male lions that have come into the area. They see this big lion and they immediately think it's potential competition until they pick up on the scent, and then they realize it's a female. But I think she did get into quite a few scraps until the males realized that it was indeed a female and not another male. Soraya, the lions do occasionally cough up a bit of hair now and then, because they're constantly grooming, and their tongues are incredibly rough. They've got very almost barbed tongue is probably the best way of describing it. Little tiny hairs on the tongue, and those tongues are so rough. You'll often see it. The best example I can give is when they feeding on a carcass. You'll see how these lions will lick a carcass, and they'll often lick away some of the hair and open up the skin of the carcass that they're feeding on with those rough tongues. Now that, when they're grooming themselves, will also obviously then result in them pulling a lot of hair off themselves. So yes, they do cough up some hair from time to time, and occasionally you'll also see a lot of hair in their dung. I see they focused on something. Let's just see what they... Little one nearer asked how many lionesses I can see now. Now, 1, 2, 3, 4. I think I see 4 or 5. I think it's 5 that I can see. Oh dear. 1. Can't see, that's 1, 2, 3, 4. I think it's 4 that I can see. Folks, can you see any others? Big lionesses. Now again, with this pile of lions, it makes it a bit difficult, but
I get 5.
Have you got 5 too? Okay, so yeah, I think it's 5 lionesses. Now I haven't seen this pride for quite some time, as I said, and I only got back the other day, but I haven't seen them for 2 months or so. So if any of you have seen them recently, how many lionesses are still within the pride? If you can let me know, I'm curious, but I think we can see 5 lionesses at the moment. And I think that's right with the Nkuhuma Pride. Hardly. Lions would probably hunt any time of the day, and I say that because they are very opportunistic. Oh, look at that big yawn. Yawning is often a sign that they could potentially start moving around. Let's see if the others follow. So hardly. Lions, as I said, will hunt any time during the day or night. They are very opportunistic, so if there's a chance of them getting food, they will indeed hunt. They prefer hunting at night though, because under the cover of darkness it's easier for them to stalk and ambush their prey. But it's not to say that they won't hunt during the day. Lions often hunt during the day, mornings, afternoons. I've even seen lions busy feeding on a carcass, and another wildebeest has run past and they've got up and tried to hunt that. So if the opportunity is there, they will take it, because they don't know when their next meal is going to be. So it all depends if the conditions are right. Are they able to stalk, and can they get a bit closer?
No, I'm fine. It's just the big ones generally start there.
So Siberia Zumi, thank you. So there's the 5 lionesses in the pride, and then 7 youngsters, 7 cubs. So we have definitely seen 5 lionesses here. Well, both Fergs and I counted 5, so I hope we didn't make a mistake.
That's the maximum I can count.
And we'll see if we can count. We'll see if we can count some of the cubs. Now, while I do that, let's head back to Tristan, who's at a dam, and see if there's anything in the water.
Well, there will probably be many things in the water, Byron. I would imagine there will be a few fish inside here, varying insects, but what is most obvious is a young male hippo that seems to be on its own. And it's quite interesting to watch how the fluctuation has sort of taken place here at Buffelshoek Dam. There was at one stage we had 5, I think, in total, or 4, somewhere around there, and since then they've kind of dwindled away. I would have thought winter would have taken hold, more and more hippos would have arrived at this water source, because Buffelshoek Dam is still quite full in comparison to some of the other water sources in the area. So I'm quite surprised that some of them have left, but you can actually see that it's not as deep as it looks. There you can see that hippo, which is now probably standing up, how much of it is actually exposed of its back. Now you would have thought that in that sort of section of the dam, because it's almost right in the middle, that it would be very, very, very deep there. Well, it's not. It's actually very shallow, and that's probably why some of the hippos have moved, because they can't actually stand without their backs being too exposed. And it just shows you that when this winter does take hold and how sort of dry times are going to come, this dam recedes very, very quickly because of its sort of depth. It's not as deep as it looks, and therefore it loses its sort of moisture quickly, and the dam will actually shrink quite fast, and we'll see that it'll get much lower by the end of the winter. I don't think it's going to dry up like last year, but it definitely is going to be much lower. Now, are you being shy, hippo? It's a fairly active hippo, though. It's moving around in all over the place. It's going around in circles, and since we've been here, it's been quite active in its sort of movements. I always love when they come up after they've been underwater and they flick their ears like that to get rid of the water, and then also just spray water out their noses. So, Karina, you're wondering what type of fish would be inside this water. Well, probably the most common species of fish that we'd have in here is called a catfish, or here in South Africa we refer to them as a barbel. Now, those are fish that are actually able to walk on land, and so even though I was saying that this area might have dried up, what happens is that those fish can actually come out of a dam like Chitwa Dam, let's say, that didn't dry up, and they can use their fins to walk on land. And catfish actually breathe air. They're not ones that have these gills that are able to they do have gills, but they don't have a situation where they can actually process air. And so what you find is that they'll be in water like this, and they'll then come up to the surface and they gulp air, and that allows them then to cross land to be able to walk over it. So they'll then move into here, and then what you'll find is from the top there's a little riverbed that comes in, and there's another riverbed on our left hand side. So these two riverbeds that come through, those will flood. And so when we've had lots of rain, you get lots of flooding happening, and so other dams that are further upstream, they're going to spill over, and things like bream, certain types of bream will wash down into here. Then you'll find little squeakers might be in here. There's a type of fish called a killifish that sometimes occurs in some of the rivers that might be washed inside here. So varying types of fish you would get, but the most common would be bream and catfish. Those are the ones that we see mostly in a situation like this. And fortunately for them, last year was a bit of a massacre, because as these dams dried out and became small pools, so the storks and herons had an absolute field day. They would walk around just the fringes and just hammer these fish as they were sort of crawled into these tight little mud puddles. And we even saw some evidence of leopards hunting them. So not so much here on Djuma or in the north, but I saw a lot of pictures from the western side of the Sabi Sands where there was a leopard individual that decided that it would go after the catfish, and it was quite an entertaining sort of video to watch, and even the photographs that came out of it, because this leopard went head first into this black mud to grab this catfish, and it came out and it almost looked like a black panther rather than a leopard when it came out, with these bright yellow eyes. It was very, very cool to see. And so you'll find that leopards were quite resourceful for that, and they'll utilize these fish for themselves. What does surprise me, though, with just talking about fish and Buffelshoek Dam in particular, is the lack of kingfishers here. I would have thought that we would have seen a lot more pied and giant kingfishers in this area. It is a rather nice water source for those two species that are fish eaters to spend a lot of time, and yet we don't ever see them on the fringes or on the margins on these sort of dead trees. And I really would have thought we would have seen a lot more of them in the last few months than what we have seen. I know at Chitwa Dam we do see the pied and the giants every now and then, but down here I would have, or up here should I say, I would have thought that we would have seen them a lot more than we have. But what is also quite cool is that there are fresh tracks for buffalo in this area, so I'm going to try to see if I can't find them. So Niggy, you want to know if I've ever seen a leopard catch a catfish? No, I've never actually seen one physically hunting and catching one. I've seen one eating a catfish, but it was actually stolen from a fish eagle, which was quite a cool sighting. So that was Tandi's young cub, Wabayiza. He managed to steal a catfish from a fish eagle at Chitwa Dam, which was very, very cool. But in terms of actually hunting one, no, unfortunately I haven't. It's one of those things that I really want to see. I've seen multiple videos on it, and it kind of looks very epic when these leopards go charging into the mud and fish are splashing everywhere, and the leopard itself is covered in mud. Looks like quite a cool sighting to watch. So hopefully one day, you never know, maybe this winter is the day that we will be able to see them. I know that Hosanna and Shongile have both been seen eating catfish as well, so they on Little Gowrie, so they know how to do it as well. So maybe we'll see some sort of sign of them in the near future. Maybe Treehouse Dam or Twin Dams, they'll be able to do it. Right, well, we're going to try and see if I can't find these buffalo tracks. I wonder if these are not the same buffalo that the Nkuhumas were trying to hunt last night, because these tracks sort of look like from last night. They crossing the dam wall itself, and they're heading towards sort of Gwari Pan. So I'm going to go check Gwari Pan and see if they're not wallowing in that mud. I don't think there's very much water left at Gwari Pan, but maybe, just maybe, the buffalo will be lying in the mud. Now, just on the dam wall in front of us is one of my favorite little birds to see at a waterhole. It's a little three-banded plover. So there it is, and it's vigorously grooming itself, getting rid of any little sort of parasites or itches that it may have, and just getting those feathers into good condition. But these little guys always look as though they're so busy. They kind of fly around, and then they go onto the edge of the water, and then there's lots of sort of running around and trying to get to whatever they're trying to feed off, and they run and then they grab it, and it's all quite sort of active. So I quite enjoy watching them. They tend to be very busy little things. Right, now I'm going to try and see if I can't find these buffalo. So while we do that, let's go across to those that tormented them last night.
Well, good luck with those buffalo, Tristan. I hope you find them. Now, there's a little bit of activity, but one or two of the lionesses just moved off a little bit and lay down again. So I'm hoping they do stay in this area. And there's such a few more minutes, and then we'll make space for some other vehicles to come in and have a view of these lions. We've had such a lovely sighting of them. So nice to see them again. Dear watcher, you say it looks like the lions need to eat. Yeah, well, the lions, you know, on average will try and hunt once every 3 days or so. That I would say is an average, but again, going back to how opportunistic they are, we've seen this Nkuhuma Pride in the past hunting a buffalo every day for 2 weeks. So if the opportunity is there, they will do it. But generally 2 or 3 times a week, if they can feed, that's good for lions. Also depending on the size of the prey, so there are a lot of factors that need to be considered. I've managed to count the pride, and I think all 7 youngsters are here with the 5 females. I just haven't seen that young cub. Now I wonder if those 7 include that young cub. By the looks of it, I don't think so. Mary, you asked how big the canine tooth of a lion is. It's about, I'll have to show you. Canine teeth of lions can get to about that long, that length, depending how much is actually seated in the jaw itself. But probably about that long, if I can show you. Yeah, about that. They're long, big teeth, really big teeth. Some of the males might even be slightly longer, but big teeth, long, sharp canines. So I don't know what that is in, if you use centimeters or inches. What's that? 2 inches? What is that? Inch, 2 inch? I don't know.
Inch 25.
we don't know. It's probably about
2 inches.
10 centimeters. Yeah, 15 centimeters. What do you think?
You're exaggerating.
No. No, what's that?
I think that's about 7.
7 centimeters, yeah. 7 centimeters maybe. Six or 7 centimeters maybe, I don't know. See, we get very confused sometimes with all these measurements and changing from centimeters to inches to millimeters. I'm just starting to move a little bit into the thicker bush now, and the lionesses are still lying down in the distance, so I think these youngsters are probably just going to go and join them. But have you been counting of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5? Tess, yes, I think the lionesses would know if the cubs are in distress while they're hunting. Do you mean, well, it actually all depends if they're close or not. If they've left the cubs in an area, say at a den site, and the females are out hunting, no, there's obviously no way they would know if they are in distress or not at the den site. But if they're close by, which these young cubs would be, they'd be following the pride, and they'd be left not too far behind if the lionesses are hunting. But if, say for example, buffalo, that would probably be the worst case scenario. Buffalo turn around and chase the pride. Those lionesses would try their best to protect the cubs, but it's not always easy against a big, large buffalo. Here's another youngster. And there they go. Now, as I said, we're going to make some space, and hopefully the other vehicle will get a chance to come in and see these lions for a while. We'll possibly try again later. I'm hoping they stay in the area. I think they will. So let's head back to Tristan and find out how his search for those buffalo is going.
Well, not very well at all, Byron, unfortunately. The buffalo tracks go straight into Torchwood, and so therefore no sign of them anywhere near where we can go. So we're going to carry on our search. There's a track for a male elephant going straight down the road in front of us. You can actually see his big disc-like feet and where his trunk has been dragging as he's been going down the road in front. So you can see there's sort of these big drag marks there, and then those big circles. That are the elephant's tracks. So maybe Chitwa Dam is actually not a bad place to go and look. It's probably a bit cool now for them to be drinking excessively, but let's go and try and see. You never know. There's quite a long way from Chitwa Dam, but maybe that's where he's headed to, and we'll be able to find him there. It would be nice to see a big bull elephant. In fact, elephants would be very nice. I haven't seen ellies in quite some time. Ah, okay. So, Violet, you're wondering if Buffelshoek Dam did dry up, would the hippos move out of that area? Well, yes, they would, most definitely. The hippos are not going to stay in an area where they're exposed to the sun, and so you'll find that they'll then travel and try and find themselves another place to go and sit and to spend the day. Now, what you will find is sometimes young male hippos will cling to those water holes for as long as possible, and you'll get a situation where they'll be basically lying in mud and just kind of caked in mud, and it'll get to the point where that mud starts to be very sticky, and then you'll find that they'll start moving and trying to go somewhere else. And they'll travel quite big distances. It's not uncommon for a hippo to travel from here all the way up to somewhere like Olifants or Letaba, which is easily sort of 100 kilometers from where we are now, just to try and find those rivers that are a little bit more permanent water sources. So you will find that they'll move quite a bit. And last year we had a sort of massive decline in the number of hippos, and the reason for it was that it was such a bad drought, and one, there was a lack of water, and so hippos had to move and had to go into different areas. The second was that they had a lot more competition, so there was a lot more fighting, and you ended up with a lot of hippos being sort of killed by one another. And the third reason was that there was very little grass, and therefore hippos unfortunately had no nutrients, and so a lot of them actually succumbed to the drought last year. And so the population of hippos did decrease quite a bit last year, but they will recover quite quickly. As long as we get a few good years of rain, we'll end up with a situation where they will recover quite fast. Now our Eddie trucks actually are looking quite fresh. I'm just looking at them as we're sort of going. There is one or two sort of signs of birds on the top, which could be from this morning, but I suppose the dung doesn't look too fresh though. That's not a good sign. It's not as fresh as I thought it would be. I thought with the wind we would have seen a lot more disturbance on the track, but it doesn't really look like that, unless it's two different sets of elephants that have walked here. You never know, maybe there was a herd followed by then a male, but it looks like they've cut off actually into Torchwood, because there's no further signs where we are now. I don't know what's going on this morning. Everything seems to be wanting to go away from us. Maybe I need to go and rub shoulders with Byron for a little bit to get a bit of his luck, and to be able to then find some of the animals like he has this morning. He's done very, very well with the Nkuhuma Pride.